Hey guys, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about the difference between what an iBuyer is and how it compares to a local buyer. What I really want to know, Ben, is do you know what the I stands for in iBuyer?
Yeah, we were talking about this before, and some people think it's like I is in iPod because it's a tech type of company, but what it actually stands for is instant, for an instant buyer, because the idea is that you can go online, submit your address, answer a few questions, and get an instant offer. So that's how
Yeah,
they came up with the name.
yeah, that's cool. Instant buyer. I thought it was internet, like an
Yep.
internet buy or something like that. But
Yeah, and
uh,
the companies that are doing this, the companies that started it were like Redfin and Zillow, and some of the companies that you associate with being real kind of tech internet companies. So I
yeah,
can see where that would come from too.
Open Door just announced that they were doing iBuying in New York.
Yep.
They do a lot of advertisement. I think I've seen a lot of advertisement about Open Door.
Yeah, they've been big throughout the country. Basically, all these iBuyers started pretty much in the Southwest, where I think a lot of homes are very cookie cutter. There's a lot of big subdivisions,
Hmm.
and it's, I'll say, a little bit easier of a market. So it's kind of interesting to see that, especially after Zillow has kind of backed out of the iBuying game because they were
Hmm.
losing a lot of money. It's interesting to see a company like Open Door come to New York, which is definitely a tougher market.
I agree. Now, if you're listening to us now and you don't know what an iBuyer technically is or what they're doing, they will buy the house themselves. So the company will buy the house, do minor work to it, and then list it on the market for
Yep.
your information. That's how it works.
I was going to say, typically,
Yeah.
yeah, compared to what you may think of as like a house flipper, they're doing a much lower level of renovation. They're basically in the quantity business, so they want to buy a ton of houses. They want to do a little bit of work so they can turn them really quickly
Mhm.
and sell them.
Let's talk about advantages. We're going to go over a few things today, and it's going to. The first one is advantages. The advantage of one of these guys coming to your house is that you can get a fast cash offer on your home,
Yep.
and that's sometimes a great amenity to have whenever you are working with the buyer, that they can close quickly on your home so you can make plans and move to another state, or if you're a senior you want to find an apartment or move in with the kids. So all of that can be coordinated with a cash offer because they're flexible with time.
Yep.
Well, that's the second part of it, is that closing on your timeline. That's a very awesome benefit for some people who we work with, is having someone say, I'll make you an offer and then you pick the closing date. When do you want to move? You want to move tomorrow? Do you want to move in 6 months from now? Maybe tomorrow is not a good example because you can't really close tomorrow, but
Right. Yeah, and those are two really common reasons that people sell to us as well. And quite
mhm,
frankly, like you said, it's more of the close on the timeline than the quick close, especially in New York. Just the speed of transactions is generally a little slower than other places of the country.
mhm.
So it's really the convenience of being able to close when you want, whether that is, in 1 month or sometimes it's 6 months, at the end of the school year when the family
Yeah.
wants to move.
Talking about downsides now, iBuyers have very specific buying criterias.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
This,
mentioned it earlier about they're doing just minor work to the properties.
mhm.
So I'm guessing you're going to say something like, if it had a lot of work that needs to be done, they might not consider it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. If there's a lot of work that needs to be done, basically they're going to require that all of the mechanicals, so, the heating systems, air conditioning systems,
Hmm.
appliances, and whatnot, are all in working order. So that's one thing. They're going to require basically a certificate of occupancy and to purchase the house without any open permits or issues. But even kind of more broader than that, they have a very specific buying criteria, which in the industry is known as their buy box. And basically, they're looking for houses that are as cookie cutter as possible, which again is kind of difficult on Long Island. But they rule out certain common characteristics of a property because they deem it maybe higher risk or something that they don't want to get involved with. So one
Right.
of those examples is property in a flood zone, right? They don't want to go near that, which rules out a lot of properties on the South Shore.
Hmm.
And another really common thing this rules out almost all of Suffolk County and some of Nassau is that they don't buy, at least at the moment in New York, properties with cesspools. They're only buying properties with sewers. So to kind of manage their risk and
Wow.
minimize the work they have to do, they're looking for things that fit very nicely into their buy box.
I didn't know about the cesspools.
Yeah,
Most homes out in Long Island, like you said, are have cesspools.
yeah, especially in Suffolk. It's less common in Nassau, but the vast majority of homes in Suffolk are
Hmm.
on septic like that. So they don't tell you that kind of upfront if you go online. And the reason we know is the second day they opened in New York, we went through the process ourselves with one of our properties. So we can experience what it's like as a homeowner. And we genuinely had a house we were looking to sell. And one of the other things, Rudy, that a lot of people really look for us to offer them is that they want to sell the house as is in its current condition. Um, you know, like I said, with whatever broken appliances that
Yeah.
may be there, or holes in the wall, or
Yeah.
more serious issues.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of the people we speak to have CO issues.
Hmm.
They have open permits, or they bought the property as is, or maybe even, not to go too deep into it, but they inherited the home and the house was built in the 60s or something. And it's just a lot of issues with permit. Maybe there's a bathroom down in the basement or a kitchen in the basement. So those are things that an iBuyer wouldn't consider, is
Right.
having those permit issues. And it eliminates a huge chunk of people who want to sell their home as is, because that's mainly the reason why they want to sell to a cash buyer, is because they don't have to worry about there being any issues. There could be a hole in the roof, and
Yep.
someone like us, a local buyer, would purchase it.
Yeah, and one of the other things is that they insist and they have in their contract that the property is delivered broom clean. Again, when
Mm,
versus when we buy the houses, often uh, more common than not, people are leaving stuff behind, and that's one of the things we tell them. Like in most cases, we're gonna gut the house anyway, so leave
yeah.
whatever you don't want behind. We're gonna bring a dump.
So the offer you initially get is not what you will receive. That's another topic. Whenever, Ben, you were mentioning we had someone go out from that investment iBuying company, and they initially gave an amount, like a purchase price that they would buy it for. Um, do you want to go into a little bit more detail about that? I don't know how
Yeah,
much you
and
want to
just
share.
one correction there is that no one from these iBuyers is actually going to go come to the house and look at it. They basically do
Mm,
the entire thing, from behind the computer,
mhm.
and over video chat and whatnot. So they're never actually stepping foot in the property like we are. But yeah, when you go online and get your initial offer, they give you basically a ballpark range,
Mhm.
and the range I'll say was about 10% of the purchase price. We were talking about a $700,000 house, and the range between the low and high end was, if I recall, probably about 60 something thousand dollars. So not the end of the world there. But what happens then is they do a video chat and get a tour of the inside of the property. and they have someone a couple days later come do an external assessment or tour of the property,
Hmm.
and then they come back with their, I'll say, their formal offer, and they take that ballpark number, they pick, a price in that range, then they tack on a 5% service fee. So it's as if you're essentially, paying them a realtor commission,
Hmm.
like if you were going to sell your house with a realtor. Then they also tack on repairs. So any repairs that they deem are necessary from their video tour or their external assessment, they subtract from their offer price. And then they also, we noticed, which was not really customary in New York, that they were charging the seller for certain fees like title, which are customarily paid by the buyer side. Basically, after tacking on their 5%, their repairs, their additional fees, you're looking at, it could be close to 10% of additional fees that they subtract from their offer. So they have an
Yeah.
offer, they subtract 10%, and that's what you get.
Right.
So their offer isn't really their offer.
It just stuff to be aware of, guys. That read the fine line with iBuyers, because it sounds great that they could buy the house as they advertise as is, but when you get into the details of it, we notice that there are things that the public needs to be aware of. I don't know if you mentioned this, Ben, but they put down a deposit
Hmm.
for, right. They once you go under contract, there's going to be a deposit that gets
Yep.
put down. Is that refundable or non-refundable?
So normally, on a real estate transaction in New York and in the transactions that we do, the deposit is a non-refundable deposit, and typically it varies between 5 and 10%. Their deposit was $1,250, and on a $700,000
Wow.
purchase price. Again, the normal deposit would be between 35,000 and seventy
Right.
thousand in comparison. And when you look at the fine print, like you said,
Hmm.
they're actually able to cancel for any reason at any point and get $750 back out of that 1250. So you'd get to keep $500 if they cancel at the last minute, which of course, if you've already planned to move, you've lined up a new
Yeah.
purchase or something like that, that's catastrophic.
Right. Let that sink in, guys. If they back out at if they wrote they can back out at any moment, that should deter a lot of people, I think, at this point. Where what certainty do they have that they're going to close? They can't make plans now.
Right,
They can't go and buy a house or look at another place, because what if you like that place and you put an offer on it on the contingency that you'll sell your house in order to buy that new home? It's not the case. I would never recommend um,
right. Yeah,
that
there's,
process to anybody.
no guarantees with them. Quite frankly, selling to even a retail buyer, you might have some more certainty or a similar level of certainty, because what's common in a retail transaction is a mortgage contingency. So again, in a retail transaction, at the very end of the process, maybe they lose their job, or like in the environment we're seeing, interest rates are going up
Mhm.
and they're no longer approved for their mortgage, and that they can cancel. And in that case, because it was in the contract that
Yep.
if they don't get approved, they get their full deposit back. So definitely one of the popular reasons that people call us and people sell to us is really for that certainty that when we sign that contract, we're going to show up on that closing day, and their house is going to be sold.
One of the best things about what we do is that we don't sugarcoat anything. We're going to explain to you how we got to that offer. One other thing, Ben, I guess, just moving on to the next topic here, you'll lack attorney representation and input.
Yeah, so this is a big one in New York. Not so much in many other parts of the country, but in New York, we've
Mhm.
done hundreds of real estate transactions, and the seller, in every case but one that I could think of, The seller was represented by an attorney, and the seller's attorney writes the contracts. That's what's customary in New York, and especially downstate New York.
Hmm.
And when we were going through the process with Open Door, they send basically a DocuSign contract, 20 pages or something like that. And we were looking at it, and we had some things we wanted to change, like the deposit or the down payment. We wanted
Hmm.
to change. We wanted to be able to remove a chandelier, but it had mentioned that all fixtures and lighting and everything had to stay in the house. So we wanted to make certain amendments to the contract. Um, and
Got it.
typically our attorney would handle that and would send the amendments back, and they
Hmm.
would negotiate between themselves. But I guess two things. One is that they said um, that they don't accept any changes. So us sending it to our attorney for feedback to provide them feedback would be useless. And I guess at that point I could have just signed the contract without having it go through an attorney. So there's really no representation, and I guess because there's little point to have representation when you're working with them, because they're not willing to accept any feedback.
They're not flexible. It sounds like they're not even flexible.
That's correct. Yeah, I think
It pro-
the only flexible thing you have with them really is the closing date. And other than that, it's kind of a take it or leave it type of
yeah.
approach.
And just imagining them getting multiple calls from multiple people, they have to have some sort of, structure, I guess, or formula
Yep.
that works for them. So they have to think about themselves too, and I understand that.
Hmm.
But when they're not flexible for little things like that, I mean, it's not for everybody. Obviously,
Yeah.
some people want to work with a local cash buyers like us who would let you keep that chandelier. We might even help you bring it down.
Right.
Like that's the kind of attitude we have towards it because we're dealing with real people. We're not dealing with a machine that you just have to hit this button and or say these words exactly the way because that's how you're going to treat everybody. No,
Yeah.
we treat you like a real person. So, in conclusion, why local buyers instead? Why someone like us instead, I guess. Let's go over that.
Yes.
Those little bullet points there.
So I think one of the key reasons, aside from what Rui said about treating people like humans, and we're not doing thousands or tens of thousands of transactions a year like they are, where it's like I said, just a numbers game, right?
Hmm.
These are our individual houses. We remember the address of every house that we're working on,
Yeah.
and we know the market. So working with someone local, they know the market. They can come and make an offer the first time and stick to it. So instead of giving you like a ballpark range, and we'll sometimes, when we're on the phone before we have a chance to research the property, we'll give you a
Mhm.
ballpark number to see if we're in the same ballpark,
Even a
no
good
pun
fit for
intended.
you, right? Because we don't buy every house, so it has to make sense for both of us.
Right. But once we do that, once we go to the house, we're prepared to make an offer and stick to that number.
Yeah.
Once we see the property, because we have full knowledge at that point of the property, its condition, and everything else about it.
Hmm. You'll have attorney representation,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
you'll have your own attorney that'll draw up the contracts, send it to our attorney to then review, and then we sign. And once we sign, we'll send it back to our attorney, and then our attorney will send it to your attorney,
Yep.
and then
And
you
I'll
guys
say
can review it.
we send it back with our deposit as well, which is
Mhm.
a non-refundable deposit. Again, so you can have the comfort and confidence.
Non-refundable in capital letters. Non-refundable.
Yep. And we're not going to charge you for any of the closing costs that are customarily paid by the buyer. So we get title to protect ourselves. We're paying for that. we're paying for our attorney and that sort of stuff. We're not trying to pass costs, unnecessary costs onto you.
Yeah, it's already maybe a stressful situation. You don't want to think about having to come out of pocket for all of the costs associated with selling, because there are fees, but those fees are, remember, we pay for our fees. You don't have to bulk them all together. You're going to pay for your attorney fees and closing
Yep.
costs, and then we'll pay for our attorney fees and closing costs. There,
I was gonna say, and there's no 5% real estate commission or service commission. I think they charged it or they called it. So yeah, there's no fees. Our offer is basically you know the number you're going to get minus your attorney fees and minus any you know recording fees for the state, state mandated charges and taxes. But
yeah,
that's it.
and most importantly, when we sign a contract, we're locked. We're locked in. We're not gonna call you the next day or a few weeks from now when you made an offer on another home and say, "Oh, we're just gonna end the contract for whatever reason." We
Yep.
don't do that. We don't have that clause that says we can discontinue our contract at any time.
Yeah, and that's huge. Again, the
Yeah.
repercussions of losing, a deal at the last minute, or having the sale fall through at the last minute if you're the seller could be potentially huge. So, you know, it's our job, and if that's a concern, we can kind of demonstrate our commitment
Hmm.
with our deposit, and you can be confident that we're not walking away from a 10, 20, 30, $40,000 deposit, that we're going to be there that day to close.
If you have any questions about how this would work, if you think that we're a good fit for you, please don't hesitate to call us. Um, Also, look at our reviews. Go on Facebook. Do your research. Make sure that you know who you're working with.
Hmm.
We're always there to help, and we're even if we don't make a deal with you, we're able to at least educate you on what you could do, what you could do next. So I
Yeah,
hope this was useful information, guys.
yeah. I was also just going to say, you talked about educating that. We view it as a consultative process, right?
Hmm.
You're a person. You're not just one of thousands of houses we're going to buy. So you're a person. We buy about one out of five houses that we go to see,
Hmm.
and our job is to be a consultant to five out of five, and we end up buying one of those. But for the other four people, we're there to give you whatever advice you need from us. As people who have bought and sold hundreds of houses, we've likely done it a couple more times than you have, and have some experience we're able to share.
Right. Again, thanks for watching this. If you've made it to this part of the video, we appreciate you listening to us, and I hope we're able to help more people out there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.